Lamb of God is a pretty big band with tons of popular songs such as Laid to Rest, Redneck, Walk With Me in Hell, etc. and etc. However, the song Ruin is not one of their more popular songs. So that begs the question why I learned to play this song. To be honest, it was one of the easier tabs to find out there. I initially wanted to learn as much of the song as I could in 1 week. However, after a while I started to notice that it was easy to learn how to play it, but to get it up to speed was another challenge. The amount of dexterity needed to play the riff on top of the combined endurance needed to play it. Even though this song is reasonably easy compared to other songs like Laid to Rest, there was no way I was going to be able to get the right dexterity and endurance needed. So this video will be about my journey learning this song. A quick disclaimer though, because of how I started using Songster for the tabs and then later going on to use different YouTube videos with tabs, it meant that the riff kind of changed and evolved over time. This is because everyone had a different way of playing the song, so I'll point out in the video when I decided to switch different parts around. The main reason because of all of this mix-up is because there are 2 guitar players in the original song, and because of that, their parts kind of get interchanged and swapped around because there are multiple harmony parts, sort of like Bullet for My Valentine, where they harmonize their guitars. On the first day I just decided to work on the opening section. The opening section consists of down picking on the open string and playing the occasional power chord. After practicing for a bit, I realized there's no way on earth I'm going to be able to downpick all of the opening power chord section. And because of this, I started to use alternate picking. After around another couple of minutes, I managed to get it up to 120 BPM. However, the main problem I'm having right now is palm muting. Because my forearm and wrist were starting to get tired, I decided to practice the next section. After that, I found out the next section was basically just the same thing, but with a fill at the end. The fill was the only thing really tripping me up. But for today, I decided to call it quits. On day 2, I decided to switch it up and use my amp instead of recording through Reaper. I started by playing where I left off on the second section, trying to get down just the fill. The problem with the fill is definitely the stretch you have to do with your index finger and your pinky finger. Since it is in drop tuning, you cannot just play the next string above it. You have to stretch all the way from 2 to 6 to 5 and back and forth again, which was really hard and straining on my hand. I decided I should probably start connecting the 2 riffs, but because I was playing the initial power chord riff with my pointer finger and my middle finger, I was having trouble going all the way down to fret 2 after I was at fret 5. So because of this, I decided to play the initial power chord riff with my ring finger and my pinky finger. This felt really uncomfortable and it didn't feel very secure, but on the upside, it was easier to switch from these 2 sections. On the 3rd day, I decided to finally play with the music video. Because of this, I noticed how I was playing sounded very different from the original song. My riff felt very weak in comparison. There were 3 main issues I discovered through doing this. The first issue was Songster itself. Songster had written out the first section with all power chords. I found the riff much more punchier by only playing 5 and 6 for power chords instead of doing the opening power chords. This way, it made the riff feel a lot cleaner and punchier. The second problem was playing with my pinky finger and my ring finger left the strings buzzing way too much. The third problem was the picking pattern. When I first learned the riff and it was all open power chords, I was alternate picking up and down. But because of this, the guitar didn't land quite right with the drums. So to fix this, I only alternate picked the first 3 triplets and then I down picked the next 3 triplets to get the power chords instead of alternating. Because every time I play alternate picking, it didn't quite match the beat and the guitar in the song. So I decided on day 4 to start with Section C. Section C has definitely been the funnest part to learn so far. This is because of the 2 little fills they got. and because the classic pedaling on the low string. On day 5, I decided to look at some cover videos and some other tabs by some other YouTubers, and I saw some alternate ways to play some of the riffs I have been learning. One of this being on the part B section, I was playing basically the same riff 4 times over and over again. However, it turns out that halfway through this, it shifts up to a different note. On part C, where it's basically just the opening riff kind of changed and not power chords and some fills here and there, I was playing 12 and 13 on the D string, and then doing a little fill on the A string on the 5th fret. This is kind of annoying to just be moving my hand across the fretboard really fast, so I decided to just play these notes on the A string because it was literally the same notes where the fill began. But the reason that the tab I was using had you play on the 12th and 13th fret instead of just on the A string is because later on it moves the same pattern up a string. But I decided I would just have these two sections a little bit different to kind of distinguish what section I was on. From this point, it was all about catching it up to speed. There are only a couple more sections to learn, including the solo, but the solo itself will take a while to learn. If you want to see me continue learning this song and more songs in the future, make sure you like, subscribe, or comment any suggestions for anything you'd like to see in the future. But thanks for watching until the end. Bye.